All right. So welcome, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Mueller. I am the Chief Product Owl and Resident Cheesemonger here at KnowledgeOwl. And today is part 2 in a 2-part series talking about versions. So last session, we talked kind of just generally about how versioning works, activating versions, a little bit of that. This week, we're talking specifically about the sort of like version review and activation process. So once you have created a new version of content, what are your options for kind of reviewing that content, making sure that it's correct, and then deciding when you want to actually go live and activate that new version. So just to kind of level set for anybody who missed last week's or the last session, which I have not yet finished processing the recording of, when you create new content in KnowledgeOwl, it automatically gets created as version 1.00. If you make changes within the editor for that, those changes will immediately go live if the article is published. Versions allow you a way to create a new version of that article, which is not visible to anybody accessing your knowledge base. So you can make as many edits as you want before you actually activate it. And then once you activate the new version, whatever the content in that new version becomes the live content that your knowledge base readers actually see and get to engage with. So versions give you a way both to provide a lot more control over when certain edits and changes go live, as well as providing a history of changes. So you can create versions whenever you want. You can keep them as long as you want. So if you have compliance requirements, or you just like having a history of like what a document used to look like versus now, versions can be a really great way to preserve that history as long as you care to have it. So this week, we get to dig into possible workflows on reviewing and activating versions. And I just realized I am not yet sharing my screen, so let me do that. Okay, so can y'all see my screen right now? I've got the article editor open. All right, so once you have created a new version, which is down here in this all versions section, create a new version, all of the versions that currently exist for this article will be listed in this all versions section. And you can navigate to them by clicking on whatever the version number or title is. That will update the editor to populate whatever the version that you clicked on is. By default, when you open an article, it'll open to whatever the current active version is. So you're editing whatever's currently live. So on the one hand, you can do reviews of version content fully within KnowledgeOwl on the app side. So if you're like a team of 2 writers and the other writer made changes and wanted you to look them over, you could hop in here, open the version that they wanted you to review, give it a look through, make any edits that might be necessary, and then activate it. So one way to manage this on the app only side is that within any given version, there's an option to mark a version as ready for review. Once you check that box and save it, it will add this little ready flag next to the version in the editor, so you can see it there. When you are on the current active version, if there's a version that's been marked ready for review, you'll see this little message at the top telling you that there's a version that's ready for review, and you can head over and review it. Clicking this link will just automatically navigate you in there. If you are doing reviews of, actually, hold on, let me step that back. Once you've completed your review, you can then say, all right, I'm ready to activate this version. Once you check the activate this version checkbox and hit save, this version becomes the current active version that is live out in the knowledge base and is what people will see. So you can do it sort of version by version this way, sending somebody a link to the article or just the name. You can also do it, and this is my preferred way of handling version review, is to create a manage filter that will look for articles that have versions that are marked ready for review. So if you're not super familiar with manage, it is under the knowledge base menu. And it is a way to kind of view all of the articles across your knowledge base, not navigating through the content hierarchy. And we give a few standard filters that are largely based on publishing status, but you can create new filters that have any number of filter constraints. So I'm going to call this one version ready for review. And there is this little checkbox down here that is versions ready for review. We will check that. I'm going to look for articles that are published or needs review status. You can add any other filters here that make sense. So if you're working with a really high volume of articles, you might want to restrict by tag or by category or by particular author. And once we create this filter, it's going to pull all of the articles that match the filter criteria that we created. So in this case, I only have the one article that has versions ready for review, but this can be a really great workflow if you are prepping for like a larger release or a major update. So you've got a whole bunch of stuff that's marked ready for review. This filter will pull everything that has that checkbox. And one of the great things about it is that if you click on any of these, they will open in a new tab. So you can come in, hop into the version that's ready for review, make any edits, activate it, and then move back to the original tab and work through whatever the next article is in that list. And as you activate, once you refresh this page, those articles will drop out of this filter. So it can be a nice way to have like a pretty controlled punch down list without having to remember what the name of the article was that had the version that was ready for review or where it is in your content hierarchy. So that's sort of like I want to do this in bulk. One of the other nice features on this side is if you have kind of reviewed all of them, they look good. Maybe you're doing this as part of a software release. You can come into the bulk edit here and say that you want to activate the next version marked ready for review. You can also add an updated status. And this will basically do the same thing as checking that activate this version and saving in the editor, but you can do it for as many articles in this view as you want. And it will automatically activate those versions. You'll see it drop out of my filter. If I come back over here and refresh, it has now activated the version that I had marked as ready for review. So if you're working with a high volume of stuff or a lot of things that are sort of like ready to have the new version activated at the same time, that managed workflow can be incredibly useful. I'm going to come back here and switch my active version back to an earlier one. The other way you can handle doing version content review, which can be super useful depending on if you've got maybe subject matter experts who don't have access on the app side of KnowledgeOwl, but do have access to the live knowledge base, or you just want to see what a version actually looks like to an end user, is that you can, I'm going to mark this ready for review because that's what we're working on. But you'll see that these inactive versions have a section in the right-hand column called Make Visible to Groups. This will only appear in the right-hand column when you're looking at a version that is not currently the active one. So if I hop back to my active version, you'll see I don't have that option. And if I hop back into my ready for review version, I have this make visible to groups. So what this allows me to do is to say, although this version is inactive, there are certain people who I want to be able to see it in my live knowledge base so that they can review the content or review the layout or whatever that might be. So in this case, I'm going to add a couple groups here and save. Once I do that, you'll see that this warning message across the top that says, you know, any changes you make here won't actually be active yet, includes a copy version link and a view version link. So you can use the copy version link to send the live version to someone else, or you can click view version, which will open the particular version that you are working in. So you'll see my URL up here actually has the article permalink, but then it has a slash with a V and then another slash, which has the version number. And if I look in my table of contents, you'll see that I have two listings for this article. One of them is the actual live article. The other is this particular version. We will always append the version number to it. Only people who are members of those designated groups will be able to see this live version of the new version. A live version of the new version. That doesn't make any sense. We'll be able to see it in the live knowledge base. So if I change my reader groups here and I say I'm not a member of any reader groups, because I was on this version page, it's going to give me a 404. If I hop back out just anywhere and wander in to my table of contents, you'll see I don't see the new active version there. So it's a way to be able to say, okay, I'd like these members of this particular reader group to be able to see content, see it live in the knowledge base, review it there. And this is a great workflow if you've got folks who don't have access on the app side to be able to hop into the editor and review a version there. And here you can then decide, okay, I actually don't want it to be visible to these groups, so I'll take it away from them, or I'm ready to activate, and I can then activate this version. And at that point, once it's activated, it will use whatever reader group restrictions already applied to the active article, whether those are inherited from the category that it belongs to, or whether they are something that you've explicitly assigned to this particular article.